Here.
And President Cornett.
Here. Item number 2, public comment. Members of the audience may at this time address the Board of Education regarding only matters on the closed session and study session agendas. Are there any members of the public who wish to address the Board of Education? Not seeing anyone here, we'll go ahead into our study session, which is Bubbling Wells Elementary School Modernization Update. Mr. Sessions? Simmons.
Works now. I just had to wait for it to get a signal going there. So, all right, thank you so much. First, I'd like to introduce a couple people that are here this evening. Marty Greenwood is the project executive for Tilden Coil. They're the contractor that received the leaseback contract from us, and are the ones that are going to be doing the bid and working with us on construction. So, this is Marty Greenwood right here. And then I think you've met Roger Clark before. He's the one that designed this particular project. You may wonder why we keep bringing bubbling wells up to the surface quite a bit to you. And I'm going to take you back a little bit. You might remember when we went to do the bid for Landau and Sunny Sands. Remember, it came in like double what you guys had expected. So at that particular time, we had Julie kind of go back to the drawing board, and on February 13th, 2024, she did a study session with you and talked about the phases of projects and when we would bring back the budget for you to take a look at each particular phase. So that's why we are doing this with Bubbling Wells. You may remember that. So I'm going to take you through that entire process here of where we were at and then where we're going with this. All right, so this is actually what Bubbling Wells looks like currently. And I'm actually going to bring up Marty here to talk a little bit about the challenges of construction. Or actually, Roger was going to do that. Roger was going to do that because we have some elevation challenges here. We have some sewage challenges here and metal modular challenges that are kind of rusting out. So I'm going to have him just talk to those challenges a little bit as to why we had such a, if you remember correctly, you had 3 different options. And for Bubbling Wells, you chose the third option, the Cadillac version, if you will, it was at that time $90 million.
Good afternoon. I'm just going to, if you're familiar with Bubbling Wells or if you're not, I'm just going to, I don't want to insult anybody, but I'll just take you kind of through the understanding of what it is. So these are the old kind of metal modular buildings. It was a Don Wexler design. He actually did a number of these across the Coachella Valley. But they are deteriorating. The metal panels are somewhat failing. They have water intrusion problems. They have energy problems that are associated with them. And Julie has done, she did quite a bit of study on these, just looking at, what those issues were. You also have a number of portables, which you see there, kind of highlighted in blue over there to the right, and then also down here at the bottom. And so the direction that we were going was to start looking at what we could replace and how we could make that an effective design. The other thing I want to point out, you kind of see that jagged line that goes through there. That is about a 10-foot offset or retaining wall that runs through the site.
Where's the jagged wall at?
Yes, sorry.
So 2 and 3 on the left. Okay.
Pardon me, Marty, did you say the age of the school?
I believe this was 1991, actually, but it was probably a design that he did because I've remodeled several of these and in your neighboring district, and those date back to the 70s. And so it's kind of a vintage design that happened much earlier. That offset creates some real challenges with ADA accessibility and just grading and all of the things that are associated with that. Then on top of that, we have another kind of layer of complexity, which is the site is on an old septic system in that area. And that septic system is just kind of to the left of where number 3 is up there. And so there's quite a few layers of complexity. And if you remember when we came back before you, and I don't know if we want to go to the next slide. You'll take it, okay. Anything else you want me to cover?
Yeah, I think we're good on that. I just wanted to kind of give you a little bit of idea. this is, a little bit more complex than even Sunny Sands and Landau was. So, but just to give you some familiarity and history of why we keep bringing it back here. So during the feasibility study session, which Julie called the planning phase when she gave you that presentation in February of 24 on the different cycles in which you'd be able to do the budget, we came in with Roger Clark. He gave you 3 options, and at that time you chose the third option, which that was on 6/25/24, and it was a budget of about $90 million. During that, let me hand out these other maps for you so you have a little bit better view. Yeah, I like the maps. Larger sizes.
So this is the same, it's laying the same way?
It's kind of an overlay, yeah. So the first map here is kind of an overlay and of what the full project was going to be. So the ones in the dotted red lines, those are the current buildings there that were going to be demoed out. Same with the dotted reds up in the top right there. So all that's to be demoed out. And then around in the orange dotted line right there, that was what they talked about as being the first phase of this particular project, and those are all new buildings, brand new buildings that are being built, and new play areas and so forth. The next particular map that's right there kind of gives a little bit more detail of what that is. We'll come back to this map a little bit later in there. So this is the full original scope of the demo, the new buildings, and then everything in blue is kind of more of a modernization that's going to happen with those buildings and the play areas. This map shows it a little bit better. On the left-hand side there is that 2-story building with the kinder and 4th and 5th on top in the 2nd story. And then this new building that's to the south here, 3rd grade, 2nd grade, a new STEAM lab and library. And then that whole orange dotted line cross area right there, that's kind of where that retaining wall is. It actually goes through the first grade building. So the idea behind this particular design here is to try to get it to slope a little bit better and not have those steep drop-offs. So they would be removing that retaining wall, doing more ramps and still stairs, but not as, not having that big, huge retaining wall area there. And then you got that 1st grade building that's going to be brand new, and the music building that's brand new. And then the rest of it, the NPR, the admin building, the lunch shelter, and all that would be essentially modernized, sort of redone on the inside. That PE building is where you would see the kindergarten building on the first map I showed you. So this was the project in whole that we looked at, and that was, essentially at that particular time 2 years ago was looking at about $90 million. And just what I just talked about here, the new buildings, this is just sort of a description for you and the public as to what we were going to do with that. The new buildings, again, were those buildings, the modernization piece of it was buildings 1 and 2 in the PE building and the lunch shelter. All that described here, PE flex space, the NPR and the kitchen, and the administration building were modernizations. And then the new construction is what we already talked about, that 2-story building, 2nd and 3rd grade classrooms, library and STEAM, the music room, and the 1st grade room. So lots of new buildings, and then some modernizations with the admin and NPR and kitchen. Then we got to the design phase, which we brought back a study session. It was part of a study session on 6/24/25. And at that time, the budget actually increased to $100 million. However, we did not ask the board at that time to increase it because we knew we'd be going through other phases. We were just letting you know at that time where we were at. So this is what that looked like on that particular day. Construction costs, when we first did it back in 2024, were almost about $70 million. Soft costs were about $20 million. That's where that $90 million came into play. As we got to that 2025 meeting, construction costs were estimated at about $78 million. And then soft costs as a percentage of that, we used 30%, so it was 21 million. So that's how we're getting that pretty close to 100 million estimate at that particular time. But again, we did not ask you to change the budget at that time. Didn't feel like it was worth it because there was going to be other phases involved. We were just informing you. Any questions so far? All right. So now we get into what Julie called the agency review phase or the pre-construction, right before we get to bid. So the agency review phase is when the architect and the contractor both submit their pricing to DSA, because DSA now has the entire architect's drawings and everything. They're ready to approve. They want to know exactly what the new estimates are coming in at. And both of them submitted separate to DSA, and they both came in right around that 81 million mark for construction. And then you add on soft costs, and it winds up being about 105 million at this particular point. So we had discussions about, okay, the board liked the $90 million price. That's what they voted on so far. If we had to keep the budget at 90 million, what could we do? So we discussed that on 7/21. We discussed it again on, we discussed it on 7/13. We discussed it again on 7/21. And we kind of came up with, if we had to do this, we would basically do this in phases. We would do those two buildings first. And this, that would be the two-story building, and the second, third grade building that had the steam and the library on it. Those two buildings were first, as you can probably see them in the map that I gave you. But that was going to cost $56 million in construction, plus soft costs. I think we got up to, I'll show you that in a few minutes. It's 70-some million for that. Then the problem with that is the second phase. This is not in your presentation, but this is what that first phase, another look at that first phase. I got this map, and I was like, okay, I'll show you this one too. So basically, it would do everything in yellow there. That includes fire and whatnot. Get those two buildings, but they would not do any of the other buildings. They would remain, intact. The metal modulars would remain intact, and we may have enough money to do some modernization to the administration building and kitchen with what's left over if we stuck with the $90 million budget. Or likely, we would come back to you in phase two and say, okay, now the price has gone up. We need this amount of money if we want to fix the particular entire project. So this is where we are for the estimated cost for that. And there's a couple different, because the original one, it was in phases as well, but don't mistake that one with this phase. So this phase approach, like I said, we would do those two new buildings, the two-story building and the first and second grade building, and that would be about $56 million in construction costs with soft costs. Total would be about $73.5 million. That only leaves us about $17 million left to kind of do the rest of the project. However, if we do this all in one shot, then the complete project, they're estimating about $81 million in construction. Like I said, both of them came up with independent reviews of that, and both of them are right on target. I've asked them again right before this meeting evening, are we pretty confident in that number? And they both say yes, they are. With the soft cost, about $24 million. So that's a total of about $105 million. Out of that, we have quite a bit of contingency in there, as you do with any project. About $8 million in contingencies in there. And then there's also there's quite a bit of, room to cut back on some of like the playground type stuff that are included in there. That it's kind of been, the drawings in there and whatnot call for some playground equipment and whatnot that we are far beyond what we have in some of our other ones. So we can cut back in areas there as well. So, question?
Yes, thank you. More than looking at numbers, what would be the final date of completion, and would it really be that date? Would it, would be a guarantee to have that as the date that school will be completed?
So I'm going to get into that in just a minute here.
Okay.
I have a question. With phase one, you said the construction cost is $56 million, a little bit over. That's with two new buildings?
Correct.
And what grade levels are they?
Those were kindergarten, fourth, fifth, first and second.
Okay,
It
What did you
was, yeah, those right there. Oh, is it third? Third and second, sorry. First was the other building that wasn't going to get done.
say it again, please.
So it's kindergarten, fourth, fifth, second, and third.
And the library?
And the library and the steam room, correct. That's to be determined. We haven't outlined that yet because that's would be after this phase, and then we'd have to go back and see what we actually can do. We've discussed just basically being able to modernize the admin and NPR, and maybe not even be able to do the kitchen. And remember, with this particular phase also, and the reason why the price differences and stuff is because this phase would keep that retaining wall there. So they would not do any of they're not doing any of the groundwork either as far as trying to slope it down and make it a little bit easier access.
If my math is right, if it's 2 phases, it's 90. You do it all at once.
That's exactly right.
So my question is, I guess, what is the win? I mean, if it's 90 million, but I guess I'm listening, with the 90 million, you don't really necessarily know all of the things that are going to be modernized or new. And
Well,
I guess,
at this particular point, these would be the new buildings, and then, yeah, we would decide later as a group as to what we wanted done with the money left over. There could be money left over out of this, plus that 17 million, to decide, okay, what do we want to do? But maybe it's probably best if I get through the rest of the presentation.
one more thing for you. So I guess the 2 phases, what is the time that the 2 phases will take, and what is the time that the completion at once? Because that maybe could help determine if we're doing the 105 or the 90.
Yeah. So I'll get to all that in just a second.
And then one more. I was going to ask, darn, I forgot. Go ahead.
Okay.
Carry on. I'll remember. It'll come
All
back
right.
to me.
Okay, so keep these things in mind, because what you said is exactly right, and it was kind of the question that I had as well.
I remember, Jeff. So what effect will the 90 million and the 105 do on all the other projects that we have? Will we have to cut from some of the other projects that are down the road?
Not necessarily. I'll get to that too.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so just taking you sort of through a recap of what the whole project would be, remembering that they would start with the orange dotted area, building all those new buildings up, and then the demo work would get done of the existing buildings, and then these are different phases. That's why I was saying there's 2 different types of phases. This is for the whole project now, is what I'm talking about. So in that second phase, they would do all the modernization and whatnot, but this would cost you $105 million at this particular point. That's the idea here. All right, so today's actions. 1, we could stick with status quo and go with that first phasing of $56 million, then try to decide, save money where we can there and decide what to do with what's left. Remembering, though, that costs do go up as the years go on and as they finish this one, which could take, I think you said 16 months on that first one, first phase. So that answers that question that you were talking about 16 months. Then, it's, then after that, we would see, okay, what do we want to do with the rest of the money that we have left over on that project, if there is any, and then the rest of the money. Or we could increase the budget to $105 million, get the whole thing done, bidded. Once it's bid, it's locked in. So these guys would bid it out here, and I'll give you that time frame here in just a second. Once a leaseback is bid, they give you the maximum price, essentially, and they're pretty confident, and they're all here today because they're confident that the construction cost is going to come in around that 81 million mark maximum. And then with that built in of the $8 million in contingencies, but total out the door project would be about 105 at this particular moment. Now, you can choose to vote on that in this next meeting. I would bring it to action and you would set the budget. But I guess C would be the one that I would recommend. You give us the nod to go to bid. We figure out what it comes in at. Maybe it comes in at 106, you probably still do it. If it comes in at 130, you probably don't, right? So we would say, let's go to bid, let's see where we end up, and then we set the budget. Likely it's going to be at that 105. So it was to be expected that over that 2-year period that, it was going to go up a little bit. It didn't go up quite like Landau and Sunny Sands did, so I think that,
And
they're coming out
I
pretty
have a
good.
quick question. How, for example, the increase from 90 to 105 have affect the other project? The other project that are...
Yeah, that was something similar to what,
Is-
what Charlie had said there as well. So I'll get to that in just a second. So now, if we go with that,
Before you move on a little further, so all I got was the first phase is 16 months. How much will the second phase be?
I'm going to get to that too.
Oh, okay.
I anticipated all of your questions. I usually do a pretty good job with that. So
So then, if you ready for this one? It's a 35-year-old school built in 1992, opened in September. What about like food service, NPR, air conditioning, all those other real necessities? That's not included in this.
So remember, you're getting all new buildings that will have all that
It
new
will include that?
infrastructure.
Okay.
Yeah, those.
Yeah. That's part
You're
of
getting
it.
all that new stuff, and it will have all that. And then the modernization piece of it does have all
That
that
included.
equipment, built into that as well for the, when we get to that particular phase of the administration building and the library and so forth. So here's what we're talking about today. This is really the bidding, Julie called the bidding and construction phase, where we can either set the budget or just give the nod to go to there and just have to set the budget once as opposed to doing it now and then doing it then. Remember, you still have the right to deny the bidding and vote against it if you like. Hopefully you don't, because there's been a lot of work that's gone on for this particular project, and we've been informing you every step of the way here. So the project schedule. And actually, I'm going to give you this map because it has it on there as well. So this top one actually has the entire project schedule on there for construction and everything at the very top right there. But as far as going out to bid, this is what we're looking like. We're expecting DSA approval on this project. Remember, DSA already has this full project, so if we have to take it in phases, we have to go back to DSA, which delays this project as well. So if we're going to say that we're just going to do just these 2 buildings for now, we have to go back to DSA, let them know, and then kind of have our drawings match that, and then bring it back to them. So, but right now, if we decide to just give the nod and go for bidding on the full project, then we got DSA approval in September, bid process October through November, bid award in December, and then construction commencement starting in January. The initial phase of that move-in would be expected around July of 2028. So that would be what you see in yellow there on that front page. I don't think I actually have that map on here. No, I don't. Basically, it goes back to that overlay. They would be doing everything in that orange dotted line. They would be doing 3 buildings starting in January and then ending around July of 2028. And I think that's a little bit more than 16 months, which gives them Building 5 is not part of this first phase? No, this is the whole project. Yeah, right now we're convincing the board here to do the entire project because it's technically going to be cheaper to do this. And I know once we get these new buildings in, you guys got these shiny new toys in there. You're gonna want to do something with those old
Jeff,
classrooms.
I do think they have a point of clarification that we need to make sure
Yeah,
they
so
express.
building 5 still wouldn't be in the first.
I see. All right. Okay. At any rate, whatever they're going to do in that first phase, they'll be done and ready to move into those particular buildings, whether it's 2 buildings or 3 buildings, by July of 2028. And then they'll move their way through the rest of the project.
And Jeff, in the first phase, the food service and NPR building is
It's going to stay.
They're
They're going to be able to do their daily business. The construction's happening to the west of the campus. And your first map would be mainly where that prevailing wind sign was, right? Or is it right there? So basically, everything in number 3 with the basketball courts and the prevailing wind, that's where they'll be working. So they won't even be affecting the regular campus for the first year and a half or so. All right, so to kind of go into what else you were asking about, does it affect the other projects? So here's how I see the layout of the 3 different series for the $465 million Measure S. We still need to finish up CC High School. We're about to go to bid to find out what the pricing is on that final phase. You haven't even set a budget for that final phase of that particular one yet, but we're going to see what the pricing is on that. Basically, we're under Series A, we got this large project, modernizing Bubbling Wells Elementary, and 2 smaller ones, finishing up CCHS, and then we've talked about DHS-HS as well. We talked about doing that one in phases. That, it may have to be depending on how much money we can get from Series A. It may not have to be. So we're going to talk about that one in a different board meeting, though, here in another month or so. And then Series B would be finishing up anything we need to finish up as a result of, money situations, depending on how much we can get in Series A. And then the big project in that one's going to be VDM. At least that's what we've talked about so far. I've seen the preliminary designs for that one. It's looking really good. And then the 2 smaller ones would be MSJ and DSMS. Those are more modernizations. But remember, VDM also has these metal modular buildings, just like Bubbling Wells, that are starting to deteriorate a bit. So that's why they'll be getting new buildings, whereas MSJ and DSMS will probably not be getting new buildings, but they need to be upgraded as far as fire alarms inside the classrooms. And then with DSMS, we need a different path of travel for their buses and stuff. So we have some plans for that. So those are the 2 smaller projects in that. And then if we need to finish up any of those from Series C, that's about 2033. Then we would either talk about CVC at that particular point, get that one going, or whatever else happens at that particular moment. So I know we've talked about the possibility of building a school over in Palm Desert, or that could be a different bond, though. I mean, by that time, we might be going out for another bond and saying that that's what we're going to do with it. Who knows? So plenty of things can happen by then, but this is how I've mapped it out based on our discussions.
So if we move away from what's currently been approved by DSA, we have to go in and resubmit plans all over again. Is that true?
Essentially, you want to talk to that, Mr. Clark?
So we could essentially build the first 2 buildings like Jeff talked about and not have any changes, and so that could go ahead. But if we don't have enough money to finish the work that we're showing, or we have to keep other existing buildings, then those plans would have to go back to DSA. And so that process is going to take quite a bit of time to do. I would say 6 to 8 months to get through that redesign process, possibly even longer, just depending on what we select that we're going to do in that change.
And then probably construction costs would be even more.
Your money would not go as far with that second phase in the future. Like I said, if we bid it now, we get it locked in, and you get that maximum price that you vote on, and we start moving on the entire project. And it's more of a cost savings to do the entire project all at once than piecemealing it like they were showing you here. Bidding it out all at once is going to save you some money, even though it's looking like 105. And remember, that contingency is about $8 million. And if it's anything like our other leaseback projects that we've actually had money come back to us because of that contingency. We haven't used it all. So that's a possibility. Like I said, we're going to be looking at some of the drawings and whatnot and seeing if we can pull back on some of the design, particularly with the playground areas and stuff, and sort of go with what we already have in place rather than, some of the, things that are drawn here. If we're doing pretty good. So I still think it's going to come in, even if we have a $105 million budget, I still think some money's going to be coming back to the district from that. So in reality, over this 2-year period, it hasn't grown that much, considering what happened with Landau and Sunny Sands. That's why this would be my recommendation, to just give us the nod and let's see where we end up.
So just for clarity, project with phase 1 and phase 2 will take how long?
It's on your map right here.
Okay, so that's 2 years and 2 months, right?
This is a 3-year project. Is that what you're asking?
Well,
This is a total of 3-year project.
I'm trying to find out which one of the phases, if we do the 105, what the amount of years will be for that? And then if we-
3 years.
Okay, and so then if we do it into 2 phases, how long will that be?
Well, it could still be up to 3 years, and you wouldn't get as much because, like he said, you have to go back to DSA, which could take a few months there. The first phase is still about the same. It's going to be around 16 months or so, and then you got to go to DSA for the second phase. Once you decide what you want to do with the second phase, and it could still take up to close to 3 years.
All right. So it looks like for $15 million, we got both projects that will take the same amount of time. But we're taking a chance that inside of that time, that it'll be more money.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
It'll be more money between taking the phase 1 and 2 versus doing it completely. Is that what you're saying?
That is what I'm saying.
Beautiful.
Okay, so from the board, you need us to decide on whether we want to go with A, B, C, correct?
Correct, with the recommendation being C.
Okay, I would recommend we go with C. Does anybody else want to just talk about that? That we let them bid it out and see?
Well,
Because we can always not approve the budget, correct?
That's correct.
so that $15 million, we're just gonna say that it's gonna be more than $15 million if we come back again for the phase 2?
If you come back again and want to do everything that's on the original scope, yes, it will be more. If you come back and you want to stay with that $90 million budget, then we would just do whatever we could with whatever money's left over, which probably means just a little bit more of the groundwork, keeping those buildings, the metal modulars in existence, not demoing them out, keeping the office where it is, but doing a little bit of work on that. There just wouldn't be that much money left over to do anything special. And I know once we see those new buildings, that's just human nature. You see those new buildings and you see the old buildings, you're like, no, we need to finish this project. And I'd hate for us to be in a situation where we could have just did this.
When we first started the bid, it was what, 70 million?
No, it was 90.
It was 90 million?
Yeah. Construction costs were 70 million.
Okay, so what has been the difference from the time that we started this negotiation until now?
About 2 years, this construction cost has gone up an estimated $11 million in that time frame.
It will be saving $4 million. But you guys go ahead. Go ahead. It's the board. However the board feels.
I like combination of two, of B and C, because of the word entire project is completed under one bid. So instead of expected budget approximately, that word scares me, that it would be the entire project completed under bid would be 105 million.
Okay. There's really not much difference between the two.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
only difference is that you guys vote on the budget before the bid comes in. And therefore, if the bid comes in 106, 107, 110 or whatever, would you really lay down the project at that point? Or would we be asking for that amount that came in at the bid? So it's just that whether you do it once or you do it twice.
Yeah.
So
I
it
just
still
want-
gives you the option at the bid time that if it comes in too high, you have the choice of not approving the bid.
I just like the word completed under one bid, to make sure those words instead of approximately, that opens it up a lot.
Well, remember, a budget in general is an approximation. So that's,
but,
yeah.
But B tells us
Yeah,
that is.
but that's just my wording. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just, I mean, it's not, nothing that's set in stone. It's just how I've worded it.
Does C mean that we're doing it under one bid?
Both B and C is one bid.
One bid, so it's both
Yeah,
one bid.
it's just a question of where the budget's gonna come in as to what that maximum is. A budget would be your maximum amount that the board is willing to spend on this particular project. So if you say that before the actual bidding happens, and I bring it back next meeting, you say, okay, it's gonna be 105 is where we're setting the budget, and then again, the bid comes in at 106, then I'll be asking you to adjust the budget to 106, and then you'll have to do it a second time. You know, whereas if it comes in super high, you still have that authority either way, so.
You know, I have been in that school and I see how high is that needed, you know, to do this kind of remodelation or modernization. The B, they say will bring back to the next board to convert the B to C or C?
No, B basically is just our normal practice. After we have a study session, we bring back to the board the review of the study session. If there was any budget increases, we have you vote on that budget increase. So B is still going to happen. It's just when it happens, next board meeting or after the bid. So it's, and I'm sorry if I caused confusion there, but it's just, you know, it's normal practice compared to, say, what we can, you know, another option, if you will.
Okay, what are we going to go with, B, A, B, or C? Mr. Girardi? You got A, you got B, or you got C?
Is there any advantage of going with B? Like if a contractor knew we had a maximum of 105 million?
That's a good point. They would, that's construction cost and other, but yeah, if they went and they did a little bit of review, I mean, based on this conversation, they would probably know anyway, if they went back and reviewed this meeting.
So that's what the difference is one is a hard number,
Uh-huh.
B is a hard number, that's the maximum, and C.
Well, that's the
is
maximum
more
that
of a-
we say, but then the bids will come in, and they're very confident that they're gonna come in at that amount or a
and
little bit
then
lower.
C is
so.
a flexible number.
B is more flexible, okay?
So
You want to
I
go
could
with
see
C?
an advantage with going with B, say this is the maximum amount we've got, and then everybody knows, and hopefully they'll be fairly competitive when they bid.
Okay, so you've got a B. How about you, Sergio?
Yeah, B is okay. I'm curious. Usually A is good in the education field.
Oh, I got you. I see what you mean. And maybe I'm not receiving an A in this presentation, but I'm looking for a C. No, I'm just kidding. But I'll take B.
B is okay.
Yeah, they're both very similar. It's just a question, and it's totally fine.
Mrs. Terrell?
I'm with Board Member Girardi about B, that we would have a cap or a ceiling of some type, that it wouldn't be wide open,
Okay.
more finite.
Okay, so B, what about you?
I'm fine with B.
You're fine with B? I'm fine with B.
So
it's
we'll
B.
bring it back to the next board meeting for a vote on the 105. In the meantime, they'll start working on the bid process, so we have both going, and there still won't be a delay in what we're doing there. So,
Okay, great.
All right.
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Thank you for all your information also. That concludes our study session. We'll now commence to close session.